This is completely tangential. This is not on my top 10 list, but the dub for the anime Duel Masters is absolutely fantastic. If you've seen that.
I never watched it, but you and I have had some conversations about it. Isn't it kind of a situation of the anime? Wasn't there like stuff they just couldn't use? So essentially, when they dubbed it, they just went for whatever they wanted to.
I don't know if it was stuff they couldn't use, or if it was just the people being like, "Man, this is not distinctive enough from Yu-Gi-Oh to stand out, so let's do something crazy with it." Which is to say, basically make it an abridged series and even edit their own scenes together. There's a scene where they're going to like this evil villain's lair full of duelists and everything, and they just punch down a wall in order to get in. And the next episode is like the bad guy's like trying to watch TV, but the cable got knocked out by the hole that got punched in the wall. And so they're discussing like, well, call the cable companies. Like, we can't. We're stealing cable from the evil lair next door. It's like, man, we are evil. And my absolute favorite joke, which I probably shouldn't explain it, but basically one of the villains is like having a crisis of conscience and looking at like this big glass mirror, this big not a glass mirror, a glass window of like themselves, and he's going like, maybe I am wrong about this whole thing. God, if you're listening, give me a sign. And then lightning crashes through, and he goes, please, any sign.
Oh, lordy.
It's really funny.
What is your number 7?
My number 7 is Naruto.
Okay.
Which, I grew up with it and really loved it as a kid. Of course, I did eventually fall off it because of all the filler.
Right.
But ultimately, it's sort of a thing that learned from a lot of the problems of Dragon Ball and tried to fix them. It's got a lot of really interesting characters, but it's also, it's easier to talk about Naruto's problems than it is the good points,
Yeah.
Which, is absolutely terrible at writing generations, which is why I dreaded not Naruto, I dreaded Boruto so much. It's like, well, pretty much every other character is just a mini version of their parent, so...
Right.
Which, surprisingly, isn't too much of a problem in Boruto so far. Like, it's funny. Like, it's still obviously a problem. Like,
sure.
Boruto does shadow clones and everything. Which is like, yeah, of course you do.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah, but, he doesn't have the nine-tailed fox in him, so he can't make nearly as many shadow clones.
Gotcha.
But, ultimately, it all comes down to Kakashi for me, which is my favorite character from the series, because he's just immune to every problem of the series, it seems. Like,
Kakashi is a cool character.
He is, and he's really great, and especially as you learn more about him, you realize that he's always late because he's just depressed, so he just can't get himself out of bed and everything.
I do love me some Rock Lee and Guy Sensei.
Yeah, that's another problem I have, is that, like, Rock Lee is so cool, but then you get Guy, and he's like, oh, it's the same, though.
Yeah, but they're still cool.
Yeah.
I like them both still. At least to the point that I saw. And I heard that they both, like, especially, like, Guy Sensei gets, like, one of the best fights in the series.
Yes, he gets a really cool fight at the end. But, of course, that problem is also made farcical when you find out about Guy's dad, who, no joke, his name is Might Die.
Yes.
Spoilers, he dies.
Yes.
It may sound like I don't like Naruto, and there are certainly parts I don't like, but, it still has its great moments. In my most recent rewatch, which was of Naruto Kai, the fan-made edit, so I actually got through the whole thing in a reasonable amount of time. The whole Zabuza arc, that ending made me cry, actually. So I was like, yeah, okay, this series was as good as I remember. I have a lot more positive to say about the rest of my list, but go ahead with your number 7.
My number 7 is funny enough, Seven Deadly Sins. I did not plan that. Seven Deadly Sins, my only real gripe about it is the animation sometimes looks a little too round and like smooth for how gritty the show actually is. And it's a little too horny at times.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it and I admittedly had trouble getting into it.
Right. And I can understand that. You kind of have to get past like the first little bit of it to... It still crops up a lot, but when the actual action starts and like it starts to get more into like Arthurian myths and everything, King Arthur is actually a supporting character through parts of it. And you get Merlin, who is a mystery for a lot of it. You get the King of Fairies, who is my favorite character. And then you basically all the Seven Deadly Sins are interesting characters, and you see them potentially switch sides and question their loyalties, but they all kind of always come around, but in a convincing way. The best character in the show is just this hulking beast, but his other side is a sniveling, glasses-wearing coward. But when the sun shines on him, he becomes just this prideful man who... He fights a demon who is one of the 10 Commandments, and it being, you can't fight him if you have hate in your heart toward him. So anybody who's fighting him usually can't do anything because like he's killed people. He's they hate what he's done, what he stands for. But I'm having trouble remembering his name right now. But again, this character, the sun shines on him. And he starts stepping forward, and they're like, "How can you fight me? I don't understand." And he's like, "Why would I hate somebody so clearly weaker than me?"
I'm sorry, but I'm also sorry the way that you described him has just made me think of, I can see, I can fight.
Yeah, it's a lot like that actually. Escanor, his name is Escanor, and he's the Lionson, and it's got some really cool stuff in it. It's just got a few things that drag it down for me, so that's why it's in my top 10, which is not an honorable mention. But good action, good characters, just needs to be a little less horny, and we got a gold mine. Your number?
Yes, we're on number 6 now. Is YuGiOh Arc 5. So, like I said before, I have a friend who's really into Yu-Gi-Oh! And he said to me, Kendall, you gotta watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 with me. It's the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. And it is absolutely fantastic. This is after 4Kids lost Yu-Gi-Oh! So we watched the Japanese version. And I'm glad we did because the music is absolutely beautiful in the Japanese version.
Is this
Yes, this is the Pendulum one. Gotcha. And the series is really cool. The conceit around this one is that it's like they've started doing alternate worlds rather than being in the same connected one. Like the first 3 I want to say were. And this one is all about like dueling as this big bombastic entertainment thing where the duelists are also acrobats who play on these huge stages with solid holograms. And there are cards scattered about called action cards, or if you pick one up, you can just use it, even if it's not your turn. So they can like actually ride their monsters and everything, and it's really cool. And there is like another thing that happens later in the series that like completely changes the core conceit to it, but I kind of don't want to spoil it because it's really interesting and out of left field, and but it also kind of comes with its own problems. But yeah, there's definitely my favorite characters of any Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, I think. And just a fun little thing, the main character of Arc 5 is also the main Jojo of Part 5. You know, the Japanese voice actor, at least.
Right. That is interesting.
Yeah, and they look somewhat similar in their body types and everything, but they're like completely opposite characters.
Fair. My next one, my number 6, is Demon Slayer. Relatively new anime. Isaac talked a lot about it when we did our top 10 intros.
Yes, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, Cassie watched it before I did, and she really loved it. The animation is extremely well done in this show. The relationship between, and I still have trouble remembering the names of the characters in this, so you have to bear with me. But the main character and his sister have a really good dynamic. All the like side characters are very interesting and have emotional ties through the story. They kind of pop in and out. The only problem I really have with this series is the two actual like main side characters that follow the main character around are very hard to watch.
That's a shame.
They are the Usopp and they're poorly done Krillins.
That's a shame. Because in this house we love a well done Krillin.
We love a well done Krillin. And it's that particular has heart, is a little goofy, can like mess up, but like there's still quality to him. They're not bad fighters, like, but you can take it to that just next level, that just little extra step of goofy, and it all falls apart. And that's what these guys are. But the villain is interesting. Like, there's a lot of animes that have this kind of dynamic. There's like this head honcho, and then there's like lower tier, and then there's maybe another tier below that. Seven Deadly Sins has that with like the 10 Commandments, and eventually it gets into things like God almost. Like there's angels and demons and things like that. Yeah. Demon Slayer has something similar, but it's very well paced for the most part because the manga is already done from what I understand. I think it was done before the anime started. So they just have all of that to play with, and they can do like they can just follow the story, not have to put in filler because they can just kind of keep going.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, I think it's a recommend from me. It's obviously like a newer animation style, but I think it works really well for this.
My number five. I apologize that this is so low, but it's Dragon Ball.
I understand. I mean, it would probably be lower on my list if I've seen more anime.
But you know my history with Dragon Ball. You introduced me to it.
Of course.
Since we did the sagas stuff, like, what was it, 2 years ago now? Mm-hmm. Since we've done that, I've definitely softened on the Cell Saga a little bit. You know, just sort of realizing that, like, I mean, most of Dragon Ball has these issues.
It's true. They might be a little bit more obvious in the Cell Saga at times, but I still stand by the Cell Saga has really high highs. It just has some pretty low lows.
Yeah. Same could be said for the Buu Saga, of course. You know, it's...
Of course. And even the Frieza Saga.
Yeah.
The lows being how long it takes to get anywhere. It kind of suffers from Bleach pacing in that part.
Yeah. God, in Bleach...
And Naruto pacing.
In Bleach, I swear the Vizards took like 80 episodes to walk to the fight.
Yeah.
80 episodes. And you know another thing about Bleach is that the best part was actually the filler arcs.
I've heard that, because they didn't have to sit and wait for the pacing of the rest of the show.
And they had more interesting ideas.
But yeah, I definitely understand your feelings on Dragon Ball. Like, it's just nostalgic at this point.
It is, but there's also definitely stuff there. You know, it's...
It definitely set the tone for a lot of, like, fighting animes to come.
Absolutely. It's so influential.
It's the model. Like...
Yeah.
Naruto wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Dragon Ball Z.
Nor would One Piece, nor would YuGiOh Hakusho, nor would...
Right. And it's not to say things haven't been done better, but Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, like, set the standard, essentially.
Yeah.
And their quality, like, there's down points, and we've talked at length about them. But there's definitely high points, which we have definitely also talked at length about.
Yeah. So that's my number 5. What's yours?
One Piece.
Oh, wow.
One Piece would probably be, again, higher on my list if I'd... It's one of those, it's just so long.
Yeah.
That I fall off a lot. So some of my influence is off of the manga, which I've read a little further into, but I just really love the characters, except for Usopp, and a little bit Nami. But, like, Zoro is really good. Luffy is, again, kind of like the Goku character, like, he wants to be the best, but he has such a heart behind him. Like, he wants his goals, and he knows what he's going to do, and he's not going to stop at any length. to get them done. To the point where just in that first episode, he sits there, looks at his straw hat, and says, like, I'm going to be king of the pirates. That's what I'm going to do. And if it means I die along the way, then I die. But it's not going to stop me from trying. And I really, really admire that. My favorite character is Sanji, the chef of the bunch. And I really like his fighting style. It's fun.
Do you like his lollipop?
The 4Kids lollipop. Oh, yeah. For a while on Facebook, my cover photo was a picture of Sanji holding his cigarette out. It's like, if you're gonna mess with fire, you've got, like, you're gonna get burned, kind of thing.
I hear that I hear that Sanji's 4Kids actor is actually a chef now.
It's the same actor who did Trunks. So
no,
maybe.
4Kids. You know, the one that sounded all stuffy.
4Kids. I'm sorry. Yeah.
The one who got the ducks like this.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what 4Kids was going for with that.
Not sure. Stuffy French, maybe? I don't know. But, yeah, I just really love... you do have to skip the filler in One Piece.
Yeah.
Because the filler's really bad. But the actual villains, the powers, the creative way they kind of get around a lot of them, the adventure, the theme song, it's all really good. I just really enjoy One Piece.
I hear it's...
And I know if Austin were here, he would have a lot more to say than I would.
I hear it's ramping up to finally end.
From what I've heard, it's got like 2 more years left in it.
Wow.
to say like ramping up toward the end still means it's still got a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, and from what I understand, and I've kept myself actually pretty spoiler free because someday I will actually watch One Piece all the way through. I'll make it happen. Skipping filler probably, but so I've tried to keep myself as spoiler free as possible. But yeah, I have also heard that it is finally nearing its end, because if it's not like the longest running anime, it's gotta be up there.
Oh yeah, it's broken 1,000 episodes.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it's probably up there with Case Closed or Detective Conan.
I was gonna say, the Dragon Ball franchise being 4 different series has not reached that mark.
Absolutely not, no.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Death Note.
Okay. Does that include season 2?
Yeah, I don't think it goes that bad. Like, it obviously dips in quality. But, you know, season 2 is also my favorite theme song from it, so,
Fair.
Death Note it definitely starts stronger than it ends, you know, being a Shonen Jump series, you know, especially one that's as unique as this, where it's not traditional battles, it's mind battles pretty much.
Right. The type of show it is, from what I understand, and granted, again, I have not watched it, it seems like it is meant to be essentially a 10-part series or something, and then call it there.
Yeah, but it definitely goes to some interesting places. I do have problems with the ending, of course. You know, like, I hear that the manga has a different ending, I think, so I might want to check that out at some point. But basically my big problem is that, you know, it's basically a series like Breaking Bad, where you're following the villain, basically, of the series, rather than a good guy.
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know.
No, I mean that noise you made. Is it me calling Walter White a villain?
No, Walter White is definitely the villain.
Yeah.
It was like I agree. Like,
okay, because I know there are some people who do not consider Walter White a bad guy. And it's like, what are you talking about?
I don't consider him the bad guy until about season 3 of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he definitely is. He definitely takes a downslope.
He becomes the villain. To the point where it's safe to say spoilers for Breaking Bad now, right?
Probably.
Well, I'll just say, like, there were characters I wanted to live and wanted to die, and Walter is definitely a character I wanted to die in the end.
Oh, absolutely. I still feel like he...
I wanted him to go out in a good way, but I wanted him dead.
Yeah, I still feel like he kind of won in the end, and so I'm not happy about that.
It's a weird mixed bag, because, like, yeah, he kind of won in the end, but he also... Like, it's just a very complex series, and someday I kind of want to rewatch it, like, straight through. But I hit a point where I've kind of watched season 1 a couple times, and I fall off it, like, because I kind of know where it's all going to end up.
Maybe give it a few more years.
It's a very strange... Yeah, it's a very strange... Like, it's a fantastic series, but it's very, very heavy, and it's got, like... I don't know, it's hard to explain.
I will also say, without spoiling anything, that Death Note has kind of a not great ending. It just feels like Light doesn't lose hard enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's definitely a case of the weekly schedule taking its toll on the author. Because this is not the sort of thing that you can keep up on a week-to-week basis without being absolutely insane, which, apparently he was for a while, but once he ran out of ideas, it's like, where to go from here?
Yeah, eventually you gotta let it go.
Yeah. Also worth noting that this series introduced me to one of my favorite bands, Maximum the Hormone, who did the second opening and closing, and also did that Frieza song from the Resurrection F movie.
Yep. I believe they placed in our top 5 anime themes.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly where they fell, but they were up there, for sure. To the point where I don't even really like metal that much, but I really liked that song.
Yeah, also, a fun little fact is that I believe sometime around when the Resurrection F movie was coming out, Toriyama actually drew on the bassist's bass guitar, and he drew on the back of it, Chaozu about to explode.
Random.
Yeah. I just thought it was hilarious, though.
Yeah. My number 4 is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I feel like I've watched enough of this show to, like, have a true opinion on it at this point.
Yeah, watched the first season, basically. Which,
yes, the first 2 arcs.
Yeah, which encompasses parts 1 and 2.
Yes. And I very much enjoyed it. We'll get more into my thoughts and opinions in a proper video talking about season 2, or arc 2. I think it's Battle Tendency?
Yes, Battle Tendency, which I think is the worst name for a part.
It's not very creative, but I did really enjoy the first 2 parts. I enjoyed the callbacks to part 1 in part 2. I love the way they do power scaling in this show. I love the creative ways they defeat the villains instead of just being power boosts.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the Pillar Men as well as villains, especially Wamu.
Yes, everyone loves Wamu. But we will get more into that.
Exactly. And the music is really good. I'm gonna throw that as kind of my last note. So we'll move on to number 3.
My number 3 is Mob Psycho 100,
which is the other series done by the One Punch Man guy.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
I am not super fond of One Punch Man myself.
It's a funny concept.
Yeah, it is, and it's done really well, especially in the manga. I like the manga better than the anime. But
yeah, I've read the first part of the manga.
Yeah, but it gets a bit old, and also Pre-Prisoner is a problem. It's really not okay. But other than that, Mob Psycho 100 is basically a more serious series from him. Like, it's still got a lot of really funny things in it. And it's the same basic concept. It's a really overpowered character beating everyone really easily. But the difference is that it's a psychic character with emotion-based powers, and he's going through puberty.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I really don't know that much about that series, but it might be... It's fairly new, right? It's only a couple years old now?
Yes, and
it's probably a few years old.
Yes, and it's definitely worth reading or watching. I did both. Okay. I actually haven't seen season 2 or 3. I don't know if season 3 is out yet. But I read the manga, so I didn't really feel the need to keep going with the anime, because I remembered it well enough, and I will get back to it eventually, because the animation is really good. It's Studio Bones.
Gotcha.
And, a really simple art style, so they knock it out of the park.
My number 3 is Dragon Ball / Dragon Ball Z. It's a little higher on my list because I just haven't had as much exposure to anime, and there are probably a couple on here that could overtake it. I have a feeling JoJo might. It just hasn't quite reached that point for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that I've only seen the first 2 arcs and it's already at my number 4 makes me think it might get up there.
Yeah.
But we've already talked a lot about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's just, again, it set the standard. It's what a lot of us came home to and watched on Toonami or whatever, coming home from school.
Yeah.
It does have good characters, even if some people kind of think like it's just all screaming and punching. It's a lot of that, but it's not all that. Like, you can't look at Gohan as a character and tell me that this show is just all screaming and punching.
Yeah.
He's literally doing what he can to not fight and grows up to be not a fighter, to some people's chagrin. I'm actually very interested in seeing the new Dragon Ball Super movie that's been released in Japan. Because it's very Gohan and Piccolo based.
Yeah, I hear it's good.
I've heard it's also very good. Unfortunately, what I'm afraid of, and we might talk about this a little bit more when we talk about Super at some point, is it's not doing as well as Broly did, because of course it's not.
No.
But that means that, like, what they're going to look at is the successful thing, Super Saiyans and, like, powerful punching, or the less successful thing, creative ideas and character development.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes me a little afraid of the future for Super, but I still am glad to see a movie like this exists and hope that they don't look at numbers post-COVID and with a different art style.
Yeah.
To mean that this isn't a good idea. But we'll see. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Hajime no Ippo, which is
the boxing anime?
Yes, the boxing anime, which
yes,
translates to the first step, but the name is also a pun, so we keep it in the Japanese title, typically. It means the first step, but the main character's name is Ippo, so...
Gotcha.
But yes, it's an incredibly good boxing series. The manga is really long running, but the anime only covers like less than half of it, I want to say, and it's like some 100 episodes. Like I said, it's really long manga, and it follows this kid named Ippo from discovering boxing all the way to becoming the champion. So it's a slow paced thing.
I'm definitely interested.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. As far as
I recently watched all the Rocky movies recently, like from never having seen them, and I was kind of looking for something maybe similar out there. So this might be kind of my next longer anime.
Yeah, I would definitely,
if I can find it.
I would definitely recommend it. They're selling the Blu-rays right now. The whole series isn't out yet, but yeah, you might have to go to some less than legal means to watch the series. Unless you're willing to shell out, which I certainly am. I'm definitely planning on buying the series at some point, but I just haven't had the urge to rewatch it yet. Yeah, it's a shame it doesn't adapt more, but what it does adapt is fantastic. It's Studio Bones, I want to say again. Really good animation. Except for the parts where it's not.
Sure, but that kind of runs into almost every anime at some point.
Jojo especially. Like I said, it's pretty slow paced. You get to know everyone in the boxing gym, which is like 5 characters, I want to say. And even if it doesn't focus on all of them, after a certain point, it does focus on everyone a little bit more. I don't want to spoil what that point is, but you'll know when you hit it. There's also a couple movies that are in between it, so once you finish the first series, you'll have to let me know, and I can direct you on how to proceed from there.
Gotcha. I want to say they might be on Netflix.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I could be wrong, but I feel like I've been seeing it pop up on Netflix when I've been kind of scrolling.
Yeah, it's definitely an anime with more of a cult following than a huge following,
Sure.
But it's, like I said, it's really good. All the characters are really well fleshed out. The anime ends really strong with a really powerful arc about the coach and his days in fighting in Japan post World War II, fighting against these American boxers, and it was really cool. And ultimately, as far as sports anime go, this is absolutely grounded.
Fair enough.
It'll still be over the top in some areas. This guy has a special way of doing a jab that looks like he's jabbing from across the arena, but like a lot of boxers, like real boxers, have watched this and have been like, no, that's just how it feels, really, like when you're in the ring.
So it's almost more a perception thing than it is.
Yeah, because the author himself has been a boxer and is actually a boxing coach, so he knows a lot about it, and it really comes through in the series. Like, it's one of those series that it'll kind of get you into boxing because there's so much passion behind it.
Should I get into my number 2?
Go for it.
My number 2 is YuGiOh Hakusho.
That's not surprising.
No, it's not. But this was probably the first anime I watched, like, after getting into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. But it was instantly noticeably different, especially the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
Because, like, the beginning of the series starts off with your main character dead. Like, he literally gets hit by a car and he's a ghost.
Yeah.
So the first like little arc here is Yusuke trying to come back from the dead, and it's basically he's got to find his morality again.
Yeah.
Which is just like, it's a lot. Until eventually, when he does kind of figure it all out, meeting this world's version of the Grim Reaper, who is a blue-haired anime girl. But again, not overly sexualized overall. Most of the characters aren't. There's a little bit of it because they're teenagers, but like Keiko doesn't really get sexualized too much.
Yeah.
You get your Vegeta / Krillin character in Kuwabara. You get your kind of stoic character kind of as Kurama. You get Hiei, which is the kind of generic badass character, but he's even got some depth to him.
Yeah.
That I really like.
Everyone's really well fleshed
eventually. Yeah, like all the characters are really good. Kuwabara eventually kind of falls off just because he can't, being a human, keep up with everybody else's abilities, which is a little bit of a shame because some people don't like Kuwabara, but a lot of people do kind of see him as a fun character.
Yeah, I love Kuwabara.
With a lot of heart. Yeah. You gotta love the headband of love.
The dub is just really good too. It knows
it's quality. Yeah,
it knows when to ad lib and when not to.
Mm-hmm.
Like Yusuke is so good.
As far as like
that guy has horns. Oh well, not gonna ruin my day.
Yeah. Genkai is a really good master character for Yusuke. Mm-hmm. The tournament arc is a really good. It's a little longer than I think it needs to be, but it's a really good tournament arc. The Toguro brothers are fun characters for how just villainous they are. You mentioned it took me a while to actually watch all of Yu Yu Hakusho because you got a little mad at me for a while that I hadn't finished the third major arc in Yu Yu Hakusho. You're like, you gotta let me know how it is when you finally watch it. You gotta let me know.
Yeah. I had an ulterior motive.
Yeah, because I have to watch it again now that I started watching JoJo, because the way you described it is it's basically a JoJo arc.
It is. Like, the readers actually got mad. They were like, dude, if we wanted to read JoJo, we'd read JoJo.
But it makes me want to rewatch that section of Yu Yu Hakusho now that I've seen some JoJo and kind of pick up more of the nuances you were talking about.
It becomes a lot more obvious after part 3. Like, it takes the new ability introduced in part 3 is territories are basically a rip-off of that.
Okay. Oh, I kind of remember territories.
Yeah.
Again, I've only seen the third arc of Yu Yu Hakusho one time. So, when we get through more JoJo, eventually I'll go back and probably... I go through Yu Hakusho every once in a while, especially the first couple arcs, but now I'm determined to go through the third arc at some point again as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love Yu Yu Hakusho a lot. It's probably the first non-Dragon Ball anime that I fell in love with, and I think it still holds up very well today.
Also, a fun fact about Yu Yu Hakusho: the author's wife is the author of Sailor Moon.
Huh. That is a fun fact, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
Kendall.
oh god, what was his name? The baby guy.
Koenma.
Yeah, Koenma. There's a part in Yu Yu Hakusho where Koenma dresses up as Tuxedo Mask.
Oh. Okay.
So now you have context for that.
Yeah, that's fun. That is a fun fact. I really like that. So, Kendall, what's your number one, and tell me why it's JoJo?
I mean, of course it's JoJo.
Yeah, of course it's JoJo.
I don't know what your number one is, so that's going to be interesting. Yeah, I guess I can't really talk too much about it since you're only 2 parts in. Part 3 is where things change a lot. So you can look forward to that, because it's almost like the difference between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Okay. That's probably a good way of kind of setting my expectations.
Yeah.
Because Z does change a lot from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, and it's also the first time where, the scaling really does change, because, it is a very direct escalation from part 1 to 2, and part 3 takes it back down a bit because it's a new character and everything, and they can.
Right. Part 3, because they show a little like teaser for it at the end of part 2, is the JoJo that I am most familiar with in terms of look.
Yes, part 3 is definitely the most iconic, but
is this which JoJo is this by name?
Jotaro.
Jotaro, yep, and that's probably the name I'm most familiar with as well.
Yeah, so are you aware of what the new power in part 3 is then?
Is this where stands get introduced?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm not super familiar with what that means at this point, but I'm familiar with a little bit of it, just being around you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I know I've talked a lot about it because, mostly because I expected that you would never actually watch it, so I'm like, I might as well tell them about the cool shit. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't remember a lot about it, just bits. So, it'll still be pretty darn new and fresh for me.
JoJo is also interesting because it's one of those series where there was a definitive ending point, but the editorial staff was like, no, this is really popular right now, you need to continue it. And instead of going the way of Fist of the North Star, it actually got better.
Oh, weird. But that's good. If you're going to continue, you might as well make it better.
Yeah, Araki is just kind of a freak. Where apparently 18 pages a week just wasn't enough for him.
Oh my god.
Just continual good ideas, and it's like, how do you keep up with this? He's taking a lot of breaks now because he's a lot older now. Part 8 has been over for several months now, and there's no sign of when Part 9 will start.
Has it been announced, though?
It has. We have a name for it and everything.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it because Part 8 ended up being not great, unfortunately, which is such a weird thing for me to say because I've loved every part of JoJo, I was a huge defender of Part 8 for a long time, but, I'm... the ending just sort of made me face reality. I was like, yeah, that wasn't very good.
Well, that might mean either Part 9 will have some, cool new ideas, or it might just be, after a long time going, it might just be time that JoJo retires.
Yeah, it might be. I think part of the problem is that you've read enough now, or you've watched enough now that you can kind of get a feel for the writing. There's a lot of retcons and stuff, right?
I've noticed a little bit of it. Obviously, I'm not too far into it, so Part 2 just kind of built off of Part 1. So there wasn't a lot of retconning. I feel like there's a little bit on how the Hamon worked.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much. It felt more like adding than retconning.
Yeah. It gets worse later on, but ultimately the problem.
And there was a little bit with the Pillarmen and the masks that again, it felt more like an add-on, but it felt like it might have been kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, I guess the problem with Part 8 is that it's a mystery story, but Araki's very seat of his pants and retcons a lot, so it
Gotcha.
So it just kind of falls apart. I don't know. Maybe,
well, hopefully it was just an experiment, and
yeah, a 10-year experiment.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Wait, Part 8? You say 10-year?
Yeah, it started in 2011 and ended in last year, I want to say. Or was it this year? No, it was last year.
That's a long time.
Yeah, Part 7 and Part 8 were both very long. I don't know, maybe rereading it, I'll get a different perspective and enjoy it more.
Maybe. But yeah, JoJo definitely has a lot of like fun characters. There's a wittiness about it. It doesn't make it like a comedy series by any means.
No.
But just based off of Joseph Joestar's character alone, like, again, and we'll talk about it more in like another part or another video, but I loved the way he would fill in, like, now you're going to say,
yeah,
was a very fun quirk of his that I thought might have gotten annoying, but he would they would use it at the exact right moment.
Oh yeah, Araki is really good about not overusing things.
Do you have anything last to say about JoJo?
Not really, no. Other than,
okay.
Nope, nothing else.
My number one is also my number one for the anime intros is Spice and Wolf.
Ah.
I thought about it for a little while, like trying to figure out, is it actually my number one? And ultimately, it's just a very nice, concise story. It's got a little bit of a kind of will they, won't they relationship, and it's just a merchant and a like pagan god traveling together, and it's just like, it's 13 episodes. I mean, technically there's a second season that I haven't watched, but mostly when I'm talking about Spice and Wolf, and I think when most people talk about Spice and Wolf, it's that first season there.
Yeah.
That it's just, it goes, and it's so low key, but has just enough overbearing threat above it, because there is another god, I think, that has been forgotten about, or wolf spirit, something along those lines, that becomes just a problem, and you start to kind of question where Holo, the goddess you're traveling with, like, what does she actually think of humanity? Did she forget about them? Did they forget about her? It's just got a lot of really, really nice details to it, and the animation is really nice because it's short. They can kind of put the budget where they need it.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of action, so you can get away with just kind of like a few people sitting at a table, having drinks, having conversations. And it's just I also just really like the setting and everything. A lot of wheat fields and medieval cities and things like that.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn about some history of, like, money and mercantile and things like that. It's just a really quality series, and I just remember standing in an anime store with Isaac, and there was a wall scroll up, and there was just a depiction of basically a nude woman with foxtail and fox ears. I just looked at him and said, huh, fan service, right? And he's like, actually, that's a really good anime. I'm like, no, it's not. Look at it. And he's like, no, actually, it's really good. I was like, huh, I'll prove you wrong. And I found it and watched it. I was like, damn it, Isaac, this is really good. To the point where I bought it on DVD, or on Blu-ray, and gave him the DVDs that came with it so he could have it as well. I don't really know what else to talk about it. I just, because it's, in the end, it's a pretty simple story, simple premise, and it feels kind of like a niche audience. You hear every once in a while I'll bring it up and somebody knows what I'm talking about, but most people when they watch anime are looking for the shonen style, big power-ups,
yeah,
lots of quick actiony fights, and I think for the most part, other than like you just heard my list, I definitely got that represented in here between Dragon Ball, JoJo, Yu Yu Hakusho's got it, Demon Slayer's got it, Seven Deadly Sins has it, but I've also got actually most of mine are shonens when you break them down. They hide it a little better because, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Cardcaptor Sakura like the characters themselves don't get more powerful, but you build decks, you get more power ups.
Yeah.
To conquer, but it like Cardcaptor Sakura treats it more like a puzzle, like which power is going to work for this. Digimon is technically all about power-ups, but I just consider that more of like a character thing with some action in it. So yeah, I guess I have high representation of the shonen, but Spice and Wolf is truly the one on here that is unique, and I really admire it for that.
Yeah, if you like that, then there's one that I hear about a lot that I haven't watched myself, but I hear Mushishi is really good.
Okay, I haven't heard of that, but maybe I'll look into it.
Yeah, I hear that it's like about this traveling detective who like investigates yokai or something.
I'm starting to get more interested in watching some more like anime movies. I see some plots come up that are very interesting.
Yeah.
Like there was, I didn't catch the name of it, but there was one that was literally just, there was a man and a woman who swap bodies, but what they don't realize is they've actually swapped like over time as well, so they can't just like go see each other and learn about each other. Like they have to wait like 5 years or something to like meet up at the same point.
I think I've heard of this. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, but I'll have to look into it because it sounded very interesting. And I think there's a lot of stories out there like that I'm missing out on just because they're not American movies. They're not like as publicly advertised over here. But that sounded really interesting. It had something to do with like a red like comet or something. I don't remember. But Kendall, that was our top 10 animes.
I believe it's called Your Name.
Oh, I think you're right. So I may want to look into that at some point. I mentioned last time that we went through. I've been going through the Ghibli films as well.
Yeah.
Which have that very special feel about them. But again, some of my favorite ones of those are not the super mystical ones, but there's one that's just called Whispers of the Heart. That's just following like a girl in school, and she meets a boy. And they at first don't get along very well, but eventually they start to kind of connect, and then he has to go away to like another member of the family. He was only there for the summer. And so she becomes a writer, and it's a fun slice of life movie.
Yeah.
That's what I really like about it.
Yeah, I haven't been watching as many movies lately. I don't know,
I haven't either, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just been feeling more long form stuff. Like I've actually been into JRPGs lately. Like I finally finished. I finally replayed and finished Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky, which was really good, but has some creepy stuff in it. More accurate title would probably be Legend of It's Not Incest If One of You Is Adopted. Trails in the Sky.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not great.
But I think that was our top 10 animes, Kendall.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun talking about a lot of these. It gave me inspiration to watch a couple more. Like I said, I'm going through Cowboy Bebop right now. I have a feeling that'll be on my top 10 probably soon.
Well, maybe we'll check in at a later date and see
what's changed as we watched more.
Yeah.
This is definitely one that could definitely shift around a lot. Yeah, so I would say this was fine.
Yeah. Oh, also, I know you already said it, but from a lot of the same creators as Cowboy Bebop was one called Samurai Champloo.
Yes, we talked about it a little bit during that opening, the intro one. It was on Isaac's list.
Yeah, it's got more of a hip-hop vibe than a jazz one, though.
Right.
So yeah, I guess this is fine.
Okay. This is fine.